All right, in Snohomish County, voters are going to get to choose their next sheriff. The current sheriff, Ty Trenary, is running for re-election, and he's being challenged by one of his own employees, Sergeant Adam Fortney. If you think that probably makes for an awkward situation, you might be right. I sat down with Sheriff Trenary to discuss the campaign. Your subordinate's trying to take your job.
Yes.
Does that make for some awkward company picnics?
Well, fortunately, we don't have any company picnics. Yeah, it's a little different, right? Having grown up here in this organization, it's not something that happens every day, but I think we're working through it.
Yeah. People who watch this show know that I'm very passionate about getting civility back in campaigns. So for the sake of that, not that this has been a particularly uncivil campaign, does he do a good job, Sergeant Fortney? Anything you'd say positive about the work he's doing?
Oh, absolutely. I think so. I've worked around Sergeant Fortney the entire time he's been here, and I think he's very passionate about the agency. I think he cares about the agency. We disagree on a lot, but I absolutely believe his motivation is what he thinks is the right thing to do.
So speaking of his motivation and what you disagree on, he has really positioned or tried to position himself as the tough on crime candidate. How would you position yourself?
Well, I would position myself on what works. What does success look like? I think we both want the same thing at the end of the day. We both want communities to be safe. We both want those folks that we see as needing help to get help. I think the path is completely different. I would say that my opponent's path has already been tried. You know, for the first 8 years of this epidemic, we did what he's offering, which is take people to jail, myself included. It didn't work. What we found that works and actually is better for the taxpayer is to figure out why people have addiction issues or mental health issues and get that fixed so they go back to being healthy members of society.
So let's talk about some of those points of differentiation. And please let me know if I mischaracterize something about what you've been doing. So you have been really at the forefront of this police-embedded social worker movement, something a lot of cities are trying out. Your county being one of them in coordination with some cities. How much success do you believe you've seen from that? Because clearly there's still a homelessness, there's still an addiction crisis. So gauge the level of success that program has had for your community.
It's tremendous. I mean, you gotta spend a few minutes to talk about how did we get here, right? And I think it's pretty clear that how we got here was the fact that we've over-medicated our country, right? This isn't a King County, Snow County problem. It is a nationwide problem. And as long as we continue to prescribe the amounts of pain medication that we are, we're gonna be in the shape that we're in my opinion. But when you look at the numbers are staggering. We, through our diversion center, have seen dramatic drops in recidivism. There was a report done by DSHS recently. We've still got work to do, but if you match up handcuffs and a trip to jail as a solution, and you match up, no, we're going to get you help and hold you accountable, the get you help, hold you accountable piece wins every single day.
Speaking of handcuffs and a trip to jail, one of the things that your opponent has said that you've stopped doing that he would like to restart is booking nonviolent misdemeanor arrestees into jail. Is that something you've stopped entirely?
No.
Okay.
It's, frankly, probably one of the biggest issues at stake here. The Snohomish County Jail books between 26 and 28,000 people a year. I don't think that sounds like we're closed for business. Mm-hmm. When I took over in 2013, you may remember, we had a series of jail deaths. And at that time, the community and the taxpayers demanded accountability. So we've changed how we operate. And how we operate is if someone's presented at our front door, can we medically provide for them? That's our number one question. And if the answer is no, and they've committed a nonviolent misdemeanor, we ask the officer, is this person a threat to public safety? And if not, then we don't accept them. I think you'll find that standard in place all over the country because, again, it's not just a problem here. In terms of are we turning away every nonviolent misdemeanor? Absolutely not. I will just tell you there's 922 people in our jail today. Half of those people have been booked or are being held on misdemeanor charges.
But you don't come to a jail door for nothing, right? Typically speaking, they might argue otherwise. So for those people who you've determined we can't medically provide for them, we don't want them to die in our facility or otherwise, is there any accountability for them then, or are they just being turned away and saying what you did isn't going to be enough today to book you in?
So my expectation would be for the sheriff's office that if someone commits a crime, we're referring that crime to the prosecutor's office. That's what happens in every case, right? So if someone's booked, there's a booking document and then an arrest report and a referral to the prosecutor. If someone's not booked, which happens in many cases all the time for all sorts of reasons, a person can't be located, those cases still go to the prosecutor, and it's the prosecutor's sole responsibility to determine how they're going to handle those cases. There's no ollie oxen free in this process.
So make your sell, Sheriff, to the people of this county as to why they should give you 4 more years in this job.
Well, again, when I took over, we had a jail that we needed to turn around. We were over budget every single year. We were understaffed. We still need more people, and our crime rate was up. Our crime rate is down. We live within our budget every single year. I've hired 157 new law enforcement deputies in my time as sheriff, and we've found a way that permanently fixes individuals with addiction and mental health. Now, that's one person at a time, right? And do I see a day where I hang a mission accomplished sign on the bow of a ship? Probably not. But I absolutely know this works, and we have evidence that the just simple booking and court system doesn't work in this case.
All right, that is Sheriff Ty Trenary joining us as his challenger in the election. Next to him on the ballot, Sergeant Adam Fortney. We appreciate you being here.
You bet.
First, I made the sheriff do this because I just love a little civility. Can you say something good the sheriff is doing in his job, in his role?
Oh, sure, yeah. I think this election has been civil. I mean, there's good discourse going on. There's no doubt about it. I'm saying some things that haven't been said in a lot of years. But I think if he's done anything good, I think he's been creative in some solutions.
Okay.
I'm just not certain that they're permanent solutions or that it's the right path to be on. But outside the box thinking I'm a fan of, and he has done that to a certain extent.
So you have pegged yourself as the boots on the ground candidate
Absolutely.
for sheriff. Now, you realize he did have his boots on the ground until he took the job.
Oh, yeah.
So if you get the job, you're going to be boots off the ground.
I think you can do both. Matter of
Okay,
fact, not
let's
only
hear
that,
it.
I think we have to do both. And that's one of the issues is we see people promote through the ranks and we see people get elected as sheriff and they disappear from the ranks or the boots on the ground as I've been calling it. And I think there's a big disconnect there. I think even if the sheriff was here today, he'd agree that we have a staffing crisis in Snohomish County with deputy sheriffs.
Can you talk about that quickly? Because if you are the boots on the ground, you know what the rank and file is thinking. No agency in the state can afford to lose deputies or officers they already have. So what is it that you think you can do to make sure not only you can get more officers, but you can keep the officers that you have?
I think what the elected sheriff can do is we can make it a decent work environment to come to. Now, I need, and I've said this publicly, I need to be clear, it's not any elected sheriffs or leaders, private sector or public, to make the employee have a great day every day. We can make it an okay place to come to work.
Yeah.
Okay? I think and that is exactly what the elected sheriff can do with policies and procedures. I've been saying that I want to take the handcuffs off of police officers and put them back on the criminals where they belong, and I absolutely stand by that 100%. We can do that with policies and procedures that support proactive police work out in the community. I think that's what the community expects from us.
One of the things that you have brought up, and again, I told the sheriff this, tell me if I'm mischaracterizing the situation at all, but you don't think it's right to not book nonviolent misdemeanors like someone who commits like a petty theft. You don't think it's right to not book them?
Oh, absolutely. I think that's why I'm getting traction for this election. I think business owners and community members in Snohomish County are upset and they want a different path. I think you absolutely can. I think in our history, we have always done that until this sheriff took office. Now, I'm not advocating to get rid of a medical screening process. I think that's okay.
That's what he's saying it's about. He says it's about medically. If we can't provide for them medically, we don't want them to die in our jail, so those are the people we're not booking. That's what he's contending.
Of course we don't.
Yeah.
But we can do it professionally, we can do it humanely, and we can do it safely. Consider this. This is what everybody misses with this conversation, is that the decision is often made on the street, okay? In the middle of the night, it can be if you don't want to book that person or you bring them up to the jail. So 1, 2, 3 times, it got a little frustrating. Okay, can you imagine the boots on the ground police officer, the 4th, 5th, and 6th time, what is happening in our county? Police officers all over our county just aren't making the arrest. You can't quantify that. There's no report, there's no memo you can point to. And now you fast forward that to where we're at in our current history of 6 years of this, it's very commonplace just not to make arrests. Why waste the time and resources if you're going to drive that person up to the jail, they're going to be denied, and then it's sheriff's office policy, we have to drive them back to where we got them. I'm just here to say I'm not okay with that.
So speaking of decisions on the street, I want to talk about a tough decision you made that's been discussed in the media a little bit.
Sure.
So in 2018, you were the supervisor for a pursuit that ended in a deputy shooting and killing a man named Nicholas Peters.
Sure.
The deputy was fired. You were reprimanded because you didn't call off the pursuit, even though policy at the time would dictate that you should have called off the pursuit. What do you want the public to know about that incident?
That pursuit was 100% within policy, and there are two sides to every story.
So
and
why
it's
be
not done
reprimanded
being
if it
adjudicated.
wasn't- yeah,
Because
if
I
it
think
wasn't-
he sees it differently. If we're going to get into policy at the Sheriff's Office, specifically pursuit policy, I hope we can dive into the details. We have a 14-page pursuit policy. Now think about what a police officer has to do. We don't plan for pursuits. They happen right out of the blue. And you have to make split-second decisions right then and there. We have to gauge 14 pages of policy with decision-making as a sergeant. So they told me specifically that pursuit was outside of policy because it was for reckless driving. We can't chase for reckless driving. We haven't been able to for a long time.
Right.
My contention, that pursuit was never for reckless driving. And when I went in front of the sheriff to make this argument with him, the undersheriff, it wasn't the sheriff, my chain of command, I had 10 different bullet points of why I allowed that pursuit to continue that I felt was within policy.
So you're fighting that reprimand.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And is there anything about that night, you have the chance to do it over, that you would do differently?
I think there's always things you can do over. I mean,
Hindsight.
we debrief every pursuit. We get together in our roll call room.
Yeah.
If we debrief everything. We go over it, and I have ground rules for the people I lead out in patrol. Rank doesn't matter when we come into that room to debrief something like that. You can say whatever you want. Be respectful, be professional, and we learn from everything we do. So if there are tactics or things like that we can learn from that incident, absolutely. I don't think being a police officer in 2019, you can't look back at an incident and say you could tweak things here or there.
Yeah. So quickly, make your best case. For our Snohomish County folks, hello, we have a lot of them who watch. Make your best case to them as to why you should be their sheriff.
I think Snohomish County is ready for a change. I'm in Seattle taping this interview. I've been in the candidate saying, I want to keep the stuff that's going down in Seattle right now, I want to keep it down here. Okay. When you drive northbound on I-5 and you go through Shoreline, you cross into Snohomish County, I want a bright line. I want people to know that accountability is still okay in Snohomish County. We are done turning a blind eye to crime if I win this election. And I want to consider, look who is supporting which candidate. It's a tough road as a patrol sergeant to run against the six-year incumbent sheriff.
Yeah, a little
It's
awkward.
been tough, and he's my boss. It's absolutely been awkward at times. But I knew I was going to have to get the support of the men and women who do the job, okay? I'm a political candidate. I'm trying to get elected. If you don't believe a word I say today, look at who's being supported. I am supported by the vast majority of people who currently work for the sheriff. That should say something. The Corrections Guild, the Deputy Sheriff's Association, and the leadership group in corrections and law enforcement support personnel have all endorsed my campaign. Okay. In addition to that, the Everett police officers have endorsed my campaign, along with Arlington, Mountain Lake Terrace, and Edmonds. To me, they would not be getting involved in this political race when they have to work in the county, no matter who's elected,
Sure.
if there wasn't some big issues that need to be addressed.
Well, Sergeant Adam Fortney, we appreciate you coming, making the slog to Seattle to
Absolutely.
talk to us, and good luck to you,
Thank you so
in
much.
the upcoming election. We wish you the best.